This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations with Phil McNealy. He is traveling across America, finding the next big innovation right now, and I am here to help you become that next great innovator that Phil is looking for, with Scott McNealy joining me from Silicon Valley. Scott recently sold his latest digital marketing venture, but first paved his path on the entrepreneurial scene as a founder of Sun Microsystems. He left Sun as chairman in 2006 when Oracle took over. And I last interviewed Scott in 2011 when he joined Weigh-In as chairman and CEO. Now, at the time, it was an app that allowed people and companies to spark conversations with others through photo sharing. At first, the company positioned itself as a game, but it was really a polling service that allowed someone to upload a photo and then pose a question about it. But it quickly evolved into an integrative digital marketing platform that helped pave the way for what I think is one of the biggest trends right now in marketing, which is zero-party data collection. It's a really big buzzword or buzz phrase right now. But Weigh-In was purchased this summer by marketing software company Cheetah. Now, today we're going to talk just a tiny bit about that, but we're also going to talk about the Sun Microsystems reunion this summer and some of the latest milestones of the great Sun founders. We'll talk about Scott's latest nonprofit, his learning platform, Curriki, and we'll discuss the secrets to leadership of innovation, really big topic, and how to use ideation and innovation to disrupt markets and business models and ultimately drive success. Now, finally, we can't ignore the controversial guest Scott hosted recently, bucking the trend in the very liberal Bay Area. Scott hosted a fundraiser for President Trump. He'll talk about what you need to know about finding that 1% commonality with any candidate, whether you align with them or not, to drive your innovation forward. Welcome, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always great to be with you, Kim.
It has been such a long time. I remember you came in and we did an interview when you first became the CEO and chairman of Weigh-In back in 2011. So it's been quite a while.
It has been.
And your son is actually a PGA rookie right now, and he's following your footsteps in philanthropic style.
He is. He worked pretty hard for a couple of years on the web.com and Korn Ferry, and this summer he earned his PGA Tour card, and he's got a Birdies for Education pledge that he's pledged every time he gets a birdie, he's going to donate $50.
Aww.
And other people sign up and pledge, and he hit that up real hard. And there's a whole bunch of people. He raised $385,000 last year on the in the minor league. So his goal this year is to raise $1 million for the kids. So
and he's on track to doing that, isn't he?
Well, we'll see. It's only two tournaments in. He's had a bunch of birdies already, but hopefully he'll get about 400 birdies this year. So we need to get a lot of people to sign up to get that to add up to $1 million.
And where can they do that?
They can do it at Birdies for Education website, maverick.curriki.me will get you there.
Oh, fantastic. And we'll get a little bit more into just innovating around. I mean, you can innovate around anything. I mean, you just don't want to go into anything straight, whether he could just have gone into the PGA as a rookie and just gone straight and played, but he's doing something different that really makes him stand out. And
he found out that playing for himself when he failed, to make the cut or whatever was pretty depressing. So he said, I need a higher order bid. I need a cause. I need somebody else to play for. And even when he's having a bad round, he says, well, if I can get some more birdies, I can get some more donations to Curriki. So he actually thinks that was very helpful in allowing him to get good enough to get his card this year on the PGA Tour.
It's so ironic is that you both, father and son, have two very different golfing styles.
Yeah, his is good, mine's bad. That's the big difference.
And didn't you innovate around that style, that personal, that very unique style that you have?
I tried to.
I think you have an organization around that, don't you?
Where are you going with this one?
I think I read on on Wikipedia that you have some sort of a different golf club over there in Silicon Valley.
Well,
you make up your own rules as you go along, whatever suits your style, improves your game.
Well, I wanted to try and improve the game of golf. I've sort of put that one on the back burner because they don't want to change the rules, but I think there should be. They need to make it easier for beginners, and they need to make it faster for people, because the biggest problem with golf is that it's too slow.
It is. I can only get through 9 holes. I cannot do 18.
It should be a very quick 5-mile hike that is done in 3 hours, and the score should be less important than getting done in 3 hours.
That's probably true. So what else? If you're not working on your golf game, what else are you working on right now?
Well, I'm doing a lot of advisory work for companies, big and small, very large consumer electronics companies, all the way down to 1 or 2 or 3 person startups and a whole bunch in between. And I just work for stock. I advise for stock. I don't want to be an employee. I don't want to be on the board. I don't want to have fiduciary responsibility. I want to have a little more control over my time, because I'm doing a lot of caddying and spectating for my boys. But it's great fun, and it's like doing an MBA case study every time I grab an email and start working with the CEO. I'm having a ball. I love helping entrepreneurs. I love helping capitalists. I love helping the private sector. So it all fits in very nicely. And a lot of them actually say I add some value. So that's fun too.
Well, you do. And your latest value that we saw this summer is the sale. I know we're not going to talk about it in detail, but I do want to get into, you were able to evolve weigh in so many different ways. And I want to talk about how, when you start out a company, and I know this seems obvious, but you started a company and where you end up is never really where you began, or where you began is never really where you end up. How do you just continue to build teams around the innovation you create to continue to innovate, to continue to grow and evolve into something that could be the multi-billion-dollar company, or it could be in a position for sale, as in with the sale to Cheetah?
Well, in our case, we had to go through several phases where we basically we had 4 different CEOs during the time. We started off with a consumer orientation, and that didn't work. Pinterest beat us there, so then we brought in a new CEO, and we went after big data redisplay. That was working for a while until the fire hose got turned off at Twitter because of Cambridge Analytica.
Right.
I came in as we had an abrupt change in leadership, and I ran weigh-in for about 11 months. And at that time, I bought a company called Engage Sciences, and made the CEO of Engage Sciences take over for weigh-in, and he basically built up that part of the business. The redisplay business went to zero very quickly because the fire hose you can't redisplay if you can't get the data. So that business went away very quickly. And fortunately, 100% of the value of the company was the acquisition we made when I was running it for 11 months. And the guy I brought in was a really great CEO, Richard Jones, and we were able to basically salvage what could have been a nightmare.
And so what are some of the greatest lessons that people can learn? You start out a company, you have a great idea, you have to almost stay ahead of the game, to stay ahead of the market. But by the same token, you have to continue to be flexible enough and continue to ideate and innovate to change with the market. You can't beat the market every single time. You might think you can, but that's not the case. So how do you continue to grow and evolve and either react or ideate to maintain your business?
Well, the more technology oriented the business, the more you have to be lucky, because there's a whole bunch of other people trying out every idea about
right.
30 times. It's very hard to come up with an original idea and that nobody else is thinking about, and that you can get a long runway. Then you have to have a good board. You have to have good backers. You have to have enough cash, but not too much cash. Bill Joy one of our co-founders at Sun, always said, I've never seen a successful, really well-funded startup. Because if you have too much money, you don't innovate enough, and you try and do it the way the old timers do it, and just beat them with capital. You can't beat technology with a capital investment. You have to beat them with cleverness, and then you need a good leader who can bring bright people on board and make sure they get along and work together. And that's probably the hardest piece to go find. I've found good CEOs are rare.
I love that point you made about the fact that you can't raise enough capital to help you actually continue to beat the competition. It might work for a little bit, but in the long term, that's not going to save you if you aren't clever enough, as you said, to innovate your way past the competition. Any advice on that front? Because that seems contradictory to what entrepreneurs are doing and the belief in Silicon Valley.
Well, I believe an idea that is not controversial has almost no chance to survive. It has to be controversial, because if it isn't, everybody does it. If everybody does it, there's no differentiation, no pricing power, no profits, you're out of business. So you have to have something that a lot of people think, well, that's a dumb idea. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to go do that, because that gives you a head start. That gives you an opportunity. The real problem with being controversial is you have to be controversial and correct. Because if you're controversial and wrong, you look stupid. And so the challenge.
There's some luck in there with that.
Well, there's a little luck in there,
yes,
because it may be controversial, but other people are still going to go do it. And then your timing has to be right. I will say at Sun, we were way early on almost every one of our technologies. Now, some of them we brought it to market slowly, and we hit the market properly. But we had all kinds of wearable computing, cloud computing, a whole bunch of technologies that thin client computing that we did that were just early and may still be early, but they are really good answers. So timing is important, and then having a really good team that is smarter and harder working than the average group.
What would you have done differently now if you were head of Sun and you had those technologies and you had those early technologies? Is there anything that you think that you could have done more successfully if you were doing it today based on the lessons you learned? Because there still are a lot of people that are early to market.
Well, we were early with, I'll just give you one example, and there are about 500 examples that I absolutely, just didn't execute on. And I think Steve Jobs could probably say, if he was here today, he could probably say he missed a whole bunch of other environments that they could have gone after. But we had Route D, which was a routing software that ran on Sun OS in the early days. And China built their internet out on Sun workstations, where they took the monitor off the top of our workstation and put Route D running on Sun OS, and that became the Cisco router, if you will, for the Chinese internet. Well, we didn't realize that we should have just built routers and switches using Sun OS and Route D and TCP/IP. We could have done Cisco years before Cisco got started.
Huh.
And we didn't. And look how big Cisco got. And so it was just a total whiff, since they went and built very simple dedicated routers. We had these wonderful big workstation general purpose routers, but that wasn't the right answer. So there were a million mistakes like that, but I don't really look in the rearview mirror. I spend most of my time looking out the windshield, because I try to go as fast as I can. And looking in the rearview mirror when you're going fast is just a waste of time.
Oh, it is. Especially, you have to keep focusing on what you can do versus what you can't do. I think that's a secret to success.
Right. And I always tell everybody, don't worry about things you can't change. And if you can do something about it, don't worry about it. Do something about it. Otherwise, don't worry. So I don't really worry about what happened in the past, because I can't change it.
Perfect. In this segment, we're going to be talking about education now and into the future. The future innovators are in the hands of our current education system. And that's a little scary, because in many cases, you have a big divide between the haves and the have-nots. And bridging that divide, though, is Scott McNealy. One of his greatest innovations, I think, is a nonprofit. It's called Curriki, and it's an education nonprofit. And their mission is to eliminate that education divide, that gap between those who have access to high quality education and those who do not, in the US as well as worldwide. Thank you, Scott, again for being here. Can you tell us, what was that catalyst that drove you to start Curriki? And what were the first steps that you took to create it?
Well, my first step was having children. And as soon as I started having children, I noticed they were buying $130 third grade math textbooks, and they were carrying textbooks on backpacks and roller. They take luggage to school with their
I remember that.
And then I found out that we were spending $8 to $15 billion a year, every year, annually, once a year on educational materials. Long story short, we were open sourcing everything at Sun Microsystems. I said, let's open source curriculum. And so we've now built the largest open source repository of about almost 300,000 free and open source curriculum resources, textbooks, worksheets, science projects, videos, and full scope and sequence, classes like 8th grade calculus or whatever. That was phase one. And what you see now today is a huge collapsing of this whole textbook world, and it's all going electronic, and we're getting to con videos and all kinds of other wonderful new alternatives to the stuff you get on the blackboard and then the whiteboard. I mean, going blackboard to whiteboard was considered an innovation, and I really think we need to digitize that. We are actually moving to a whole new era at Curriki to try, and we have this No Child Held Back. I love it. It's important, and the public schools are really good at doing the best they can to pull that forward, but nobody thinks that it's a perfect situation or can't be improved. I think there's a whole issue around people have different aptitudes, different things they like, different things they're good at. And some are going to be good carpenters, some are going to be good linguists, some are going to be in the performing arts or music, some are going to be great at math, some love history, some love different topics. And rather than having everybody move at the pace of the one we don't want to leave behind in the classroom, how about no parent, teacher, or child held back? So the model here is to create a learning exchange, a curriculum exchange, where on the one side you have people who are teachers, students, and parents, and on the other side of the exchange is all of this new age electronic curriculum. Mm-hmm. In the middle you have an exchange that's a chatbot, AI, machine learning environment with federated identity and directory and registration, real-time scoring, leaderboarding, shared whiteboard, push to talk to a retired teacher. And we're going to create a reference open source implementation of this exchange that is downloadable for free to any school or nonprofit that can use this and then build curriculum that runs on top of this. And there's a little magic we're going to build into this thing, which is an achievement portfolio. So every time you do anything on this exchange or any other exchange that may be at Dow Chemical for chemistry, or maybe at a school in New York, or maybe at the art school in San Francisco, or anytime you do anything on any exchange, it's federated, and any work and any correct answers that you get, any classes that you finish, all of that information will get dumped into a proprietary, encrypted, blockchain, immutable achievement portfolio that, Kim, you did from the time you were 3 till the time you're 33. Everything that you have done is in this achievement portfolio. When you apply to school someday to say you want to get into Stanford, they'll say, oh, you went to Palo Alto High School. That's a nice diploma. Now let me see what's in your achievement portfolio. And the whole idea is that people will learn outside of the classroom as also, and they can go as fast as they want on math, or they can go as fast as they want on languages or whatever. And so go ahead.
Well, we talked in the last segment about being a little bit early. Do you find that maybe you're a little bit early in terms of the innovation that you're creating with Curriki, and how do you prevent it not kind of falling by the wayside versus kind of bringing those schools up to speed? Is there a way to bring the education system up to speed to keep pace with your innovation and adopt it?
Well, so we're going to create a developer kit and style guide for people who want to create content that works on top of these curriculum exchanges. The exchanges will be free. Every school can set up one. And I think there's a lot of teachers who have kids who used to finish my math homework before the teacher could finish handing out the actual assignment. And she would have extra credit thing, and I'd run up and grab one and fill out more. I'd have 3 done before she could even have the end of the class done, and I wouldn't have any homework. I wanted to roar ahead as fast as I could, but she couldn't really do much. But now she could point a student like that to the curriculum exchange and say, go there, and the AI chatbot will say, hey, Kim, welcome back. You did so well on calculus. You're ready to go do linear algebra. Let's go do that next. And the kid can go as fast as they want at home while they're on the bus or wherever they are on their way to the swim meet or whatever. They have a laptop or an iPad, and they can just keep going and going fast. And the teacher can let the kids who want to run ahead go ahead and not get bored. And
is there a way that it's almost like they have their own virtual classroom that the teacher can actually monitor their progress and where they're going?
Absolutely. When you push to talk to a teacher, it can be your math teacher, or it could be a retired teacher, or it could be a push for talk for feed to somebody who's in India and is making a living out of tutoring you in arithmetic or whatever. These are sidecar, parallel, and complementary to the classroom. You don't want to eliminate the classroom, but I think the classroom should be more about community experiences, labs, debate club, sports, performing arts, that sort of thing. That's what school can be more about, and teaching should be more about consultative one-on-one for people who get stuck. So
it's a really good point in terms of, you innovate, but a lot of times, these schools are stuck where they can't adopt it, especially the public schools, because of policy, standard policy. So it's almost like you need to create change at the political level, at the policy level, before you can actually create this mass adoption.
Because I don't think so. I don't think we need to. We're not looking to change public schools. We're looking to augment and provide something. And we're doing this all open source, all free, all open. And I really believe that we can get some. Here, let me also describe new age curriculum, and that is what gets kids fired up. Fortnite. It's dopamine. You can't pull them away from it. And also binging on Netflix, whether it be Game of Thrones or 24, whatever the show. And what we want to do is we want to build out this new age curriculum to be that bingeable. So think about games of calculus, where you take a calculus professor, an indie film producer, and a game developer, put the 3 of them together and say, create games of calculus. I want 12 45-minute segments that are interactive, use the leaderboard, inform the achievement portfolio, have push to talk and shared whiteboard embedded in the environment at any point with stop the video. I need to talk to the teacher about what's going on, and they can have a shared whiteboard or shared video board on where he is. Imagine content that the parents have to say to the kids at 10:30, step away from the computer, you're going to bed. Because that's what they have to do with Fortnite. Why do they have to do that with Fortnite and with Game of Thrones? Why can't they be doing that with learning something that will actually give them a life skill and allow them to make some money and have the self-esteem of being able to raise a family on their own nickel?
Yeah. And one more question just on this, reading, writing, and arithmetic, it's just the power of 3s, right? But I think now and into the future, how do you build innovation and innovative thinking into school? How are you leading the way with that?
Well, I think as we redevelop this new age curriculum, that we don't necessarily have to do it in the stovepipe of math, of reading, writing, speaking, critical thinking, all the rest of it. I think there's been some interesting work done on there's 6 or 7 skills that we all need to have. Critical thinking being one,
right?
Communication being another, comportment and civility being another. Those sorts of things. Teamwork being another, and we could build curriculums around those areas, not necessarily, history or chemistry or whatever. We can build interdisciplinary knowledge into each of those key areas. I think curriculum needs to be redesigned a little bit, especially now that we're into the information age.
And one final question, how can innovators support you in this effort?
Well, two things. One is we're looking for open source. I need a federated registration and a federated identity and authentication environment. I need a free and open source shared whiteboard or shared push to talk. I need help in developing the blockchain. So all of these innovations, we want it to all be free, open source, and available to everybody on the cloud. Then secondly, we need donations to help build this because it's got to be free. There's just no money in the K-12 education system. And then thirdly, I need game developers and professors and indie film producers all to start getting together to build out this new age content that works on these curriculum exchanges. So it'll be quite a move, but you know what? I've seen Linux happen. I've seen iOS happen. I've seen Java happen, and I've never seen one that was more important than getting our kids educated. So I think this curriculum exchange world, tools for teachers here, is a very, very important opportunity.
So I'm guessing you believe that the next big disruption in this world is going to be with education.
It's one of the things that has not been disrupted, and I don't want to disrupt. I want to augment. This is a parallel tool for the teachers and the current classroom, because disrupting is not going to be good for the kids during the disruption process. So I want to augment.
Earlier this year, I learned a very valuable lesson from a 13-year-old. She told me that her mom, who's a prison reform advocate, also one of the attorneys, coincidentally working with Kim Kardashian to help her get her law degree. This girl's mom, who's a liberal from the San Francisco Bay Area, flew to Capitol Hill to urge President Trump to sign prison reform legislation. And this girl asked her mom, well, how can you go meet with President Trump when he obviously is not aligned with your political views? To which she responded, it's important that even when you are 99% in disagreement with someone, that you find that 1% commonality to create a foundation for sweeping change. Her mom did that, and President Trump signed her sweeping prison reform legislation that she was lobbying for this year. I think it's also a great lesson. Scott McNealy is here with us, for entrepreneurs and innovators, don't you think, that you must be apolitical to truly create sweeping change? I mean, you recently hosted President Trump, and you got a little flack for that, but
a little,
a lot. But what do innovators need to know about innovating and the importance of innovating apolitically?
Well, I think that's important. Gillette did a really dumb thing, and they called guys toxic in their masculinity, and people are not using their razors anymore. And I was actually pretty offended by that. I don't really think I beat women. And, I don't need to be scolded by a razor manufacturer. Stay out of politics. If you're selling a product or service, it's certainly, I don't want to go turn on a football game and see a political demonstration. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there for an escape. And, the whole answer was going to, so why would you, right now, it's sort of this group and that group. Why would you want to alienate 50% of your potential customers? That's sort of brain dead. Unless, I think, like Nike has decided, well, I'm just going to have half. If I can do really well with just half the market, then I've got a target market. So different people are making for-profit decisions based on who they support, and what they say in their advertising. So maybe it works for them. I just don't understand why you'd want to get rid of half the market opportunity.
And I think that's important. I mean, what advice would you have for those, smaller companies right now, the smaller innovators that are looking to build their company? I mean, they're seeing these big names taking political sides and making their stance on social issues very well known and using those stances for profit.
Well, if you're big enough, and if you're big enough and you got enough established marketplace, and you've made enough money that you're not really worried about making more money, and you don't really care about your shareholders, then you can start, imposing your political views and wishes on your customer base. And that's what happens when you get big enough and rich enough that you move to a higher order bid. I always tried to, at Sun Microsystems, tried to stay very apolitical. I got involved in policies that impacted the shareholders, and that shareholders were the primary responsibility that we as employees and stewards of their assets had. But it's just different now. It's very, very different. I don't think it's better. I think it's actually worse. I think we need to stay focused on returning. I always said to people, I don't want to give Sun corporate assets away as charitable donations. I want to make money for my investors, and then they privately can decide where they want their charitable investments to go. I always got upset with CEOs who do something on a political or charitable behalf using shareholder assets. That's not, I want to decide which candidate I support. I want to decide which charity I support. And as an investor in a company, I don't want the CEO taking credit for building the opera.
Nope. And that's true. And several CEOs have actually gotten a lot of flack for supporting different campaigns. But I also think that it's really important to, if you think a certain person is going to win, you want to kind of be there to be seen as supporting, because it can help you down the road with your product and policies surrounding your product.
Well, that's the problem with government getting too big and having too much impact on the private sector. Yeah. If you want to know why we have diversion and division and polarization today, it's very, very simple. When I was born, I think it was a $70 billion federal budget. What is it now? 3 trillion, 4 trillion, $4.7 trillion, I think, is the 2020 budget. That means the government is involved in everything. They're involved in your health care. They're involved in education. They're involved in regulations. They're involved in your financings. They're involved in your insurance. They're involved in everything. And there are way too many. There's over $3 billion worth, $3 trillion worth of government taking money from people who earned it, owned it, and have it legally, and give it to other people who didn't.
Yeah.
And when you have that much going on, all of a sudden now it's and people get.
We're losing the capitalist society is what it is. Why would you want
the private sector is absolutely getting poisoned by the fact that the politicians and the bureaucrats and it starts at the local level. Try building a house in Palo Alto. Try doing something at the state level, and then you got the federal level, and it's piled on to where we're fast approaching 50% of the GDP in the government sector, not in the private sector.
It's interesting that we think as society nowadays that the answers to all of our problems are with our policymakers, and it's really the money is behind the innovators, the true innovators that can innovate our way out of many, many problems. How do we get the balance back? How do we shift back to the innovators and get these innovators to feel empowered in society to actually take the power back into their own hands and become innovators themselves across the board to solve these problems?
Well, the framers of our Constitution and the smart people that wrote about it, the Federalist Papers, all the rest of it, knew that at some point people would try and vote their way to a living. And, there's an interesting phrase, you can vote your way to socialism, but you have to shoot your way out of it. And, we're getting to the point where, looking at some of the rhetoric going on out there, it scares me to death. If you don't have financial freedoms and liberties, you can't have personal freedoms and liberties. There is no example out there where your financial freedoms and liberties have been taken away by the government and you have remaining personal freedoms and liberties. And so that's why I sort of fall down in the libertarian camp, but why I always vote for smaller government and more private sector opportunity. And there's a lot of political debate on that, and I'll probably get a lot of Twitter hate mail for this getting here. But you know what? This is what I believe. This is what I've seen. I've been around a while, and I've traveled around the world, and I've talked to enough legal immigrants who've come here and said, holy mackerel, we came to America to get away from the financial controls and constraints and redistribution that we had in our old country. So I think the empirical evidence clearly argues that the U.S. experiment is one of the greatest experiments that have ever been run in mankind, and we shouldn't wreck it.
And you're really also involved on the political front and innovating. You're trying to solve what you think is a really big problem: the major social media platforms becoming too powerful in their control over the political discourse. There's so many biases, and algorithmically, they're hiding behind the fact that, let's say for Google, for example, they actually algorithmically are controlling the political bias in this country. And that's one of the things you're trying to, Facebook is doing the same thing in censoring people that have differing beliefs than, let's say, the employees of the company.
Well, I've been talking to the social media community at large in different ways. I don't want the government to come in and break them up. I don't want the government to come in and regulate them. Anything the government touches is likely to get screwed up badly, become very corrupt. But what I do think would help them is if they move the political discourse off of their platforms, let everybody take pictures of food or organize the PTA meeting or whatever on Facebook or Google or whatever, but take the political discourse off of these environments and put it onto what I call America's digital town hall. And we could create an environment that is open source, free, and available to all legal U.S. citizens 18 years and above, where they can go and have a political discourse. Part of the problem with like Twitter is you have anonymous people there, and anonymity breeds irresponsibility. That creates very polarized conversations, and we don't find even that 48% agreement in that polarized environment. So the opportunity here to create something that as everybody's verified, and we get the politicians and the conversation with the citizens on. People don't go to town hall and act crazy and say the things that they say when they can hide behind their keyboard and display.
I don't know. I've been to a few town halls that people have let loose quite a bit.
Yeah, but it isn't as easy and like it is here. And I think having that audit trail of what you said out there for everybody to see, and you get to hear their conversations, and you're going to be doing it with your neighbors. I think that's important.
Scott, we were talking about creating a digital town hall. Where are you at with that? Is this purely in the ideation phase, or is this something that you're actually executing on right now?
I'm in the ideation stage. I got to find some people who want to fund this. It makes me nervous to have the government fund it because people are worried about government owning and controlling and managing data, and they ought to be. I'm very unworried about Facebook and Google having my data. I'm very worried about the government, especially with their scope creep, having data on me. And politically, if they don't like me, they can cause some harm. You saw that with the IRS and what organizations they approved, that sort of thing for nonprofit status. So I'm talking to the social media companies. I'm talking to some politicians, and I'm talking to the administration about this idea and trying to figure out how we could get it funded. It wouldn't be that expensive to run, but it would have to be run independently. And to be a truly independent organization has to be a .org. It cannot have a profit motive. It shouldn't be selling data. It shouldn't be trying to serve shareholders. It should be trying to serve civilians. So I don't know if it's an NPR or PBS kind of effort or whatever, but it's in the ideation stage. But I think it's a very powerful one and would be very helpful in improving the discourse in our country.
And so that could be the next big disruption. It could be in politics. So, going through the Computer History Museum, seeing your imprint and that of Sun Microsystems, what do you think is going to end up there? What is that next big disruptive technology that we're going to be seeing inside the Computer History Museum now and into the near future?
Well, I certainly think that the autonomous environment, the robots, the drones, the land, sea, and air drones, the driverless cars, all the rest of it, that's going to be very, 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 very different. And there'll be a lot of innovation in that space and a lot of
And NVIDIA will probably be at the forefront of that. I think they're the foundation for the autonomous vehicles.
Well, there's a lot of that. I mean, there's the sensors, there's the communications, there's every aspect, the software that's required, and then all the rules, and then how does that change insurance, and who pays for all of it, and it's going to be a very, very big change. I think
when you're innovating and you're creating something new, how do you consider all of that? How do you map that out in a business plan? How do you handle all of it? And I mean, some part of it you have to say, well, everything always works out, so I have to trust that. But I mean, when you're creating something new, you have to think about all those things, don't you? How do you manage it?
Sometimes it's accidental empires. Sometimes you get in there. We always said at Sun, ready, fire, aim, and the right answer is the best answer. The wrong answer is second best. No answer is the worst. And standing around waiting until you got it all charted out just doesn't work. You got to dive in and go hard and be very nimble and make changes. So that's the beauty of capitalism in the private sector and investors and venture capital and seed capital and growth capital and all of the rest of the private sector is we're all incredibly nimble. The last thing you want is the Congress getting involved. Things move at the speed of Congress, and it's very corrupt. And by the way, did I say corrupt?
So do you see the next biggest disruption coming from below, or do you think, large companies, Google, Facebook, I mean, Apple?
Can I give you an innovation I'd love to see?
Oh, I would love that.
I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail for this one, but 23andMe. I would like us all to know who fathered and mothered the child, and therefore are taking responsibility for that. I think we talk about personal responsibility. Nobody does, actually. Have you heard anybody say personal responsibility in the campaign so far? You won't, because nobody wants to. They all want to say the government will. It takes a village to raise a child. How about parental responsibility? I want the two biological parents to take care of their kid, and if they can't, they shouldn't be having kids.
Then they have the legal then they can turn that over to someone else to legally, through adoption, find someone who can.
Right. But, this whole concept of, expecting the government to take care of your kid is one that just seems, it just seems crazy. And in fact, I'd like to see the laws and the expectations and the civilization, the civility of the organization. I feel like it's terrible that my secretary doesn't have kids, that she has to pay taxes to educate my kids. That just doesn't seem right. And I think that's where 23andMe maybe could help us keep track of where the absent dads are.
And you're pretty much saying that you want everybody to hold themselves accountable for their lives, their happiness, their decisions, whatever is going on with their life, versus putting that on other people and holding other people accountable. It seems like the campaigns out there are pretty much saying that everybody else is accountable for my happiness, my life, and what I do.
Every time I see a 20-year-old who commits a crime, I think, where are the parents and how are they being held accountable? And the first thing that happens is somebody blames the police force, or somebody blames the mayor, or somebody blames the president of the United States for the fact that some 20-year-old went off and did something very wrong. And I my first reaction is, where are the parents? Because if my kids did something like that, I would be, as I told
you basically want a grander set of host laws.
I don't know what I want. I just wish people took the responsibility of being a parent much more aggressively. As I told my kids, that the drugs don't kill you, I will. Now I'm going to get child protective services coming in and yelling at me. Get away from me.
So it sounds like, you've been known to take on big names. You're taking on some pretty big names when it comes to parents, but you're best known for taking on Bill Gates. So is there anyone else that you're looking to take on? And if so, who and on what account?
I didn't take on Bill Gates. We took on Microsoft. We took on IBM, DEC, all the rest of it. And it's never personal. In fact, I think Bill Gates ought to be bronzed on the steps of the Commerce Department as one of the greatest capitalists to ever walk the earth. And I enjoy all of those. I think Apple's having a hard time innovating. You're paying a lot of money for a new phone, but it doesn't really do much differently. I think since Steve was the greatest entrepreneur, capitalist, innovator, private sector guru I've ever seen in my lifetime, there was nobody even close. And what he did with Apple the first time, what he did with Apple the second time, what he did with Pixar, and all of the stuff that he did, and the changes he made, and the value he brought. He was just a very, very special guy. And I think anybody who has, the last job I'd want is following Steve as CEO. People ask me why was I disappointed we didn't merge with Apple, because at one point we were very, very close at Sun. I said, no, I would have just screwed Apple up. The right thing happened.
So is there anyone else on your docket?
No, I don't go after people. I go after ideas, and I go after, the one that's on my docket is parents who don't take care of their kids and aren't responsible for their kids.
Yeah. That's a good way to end it. If people want to follow you or hear what's new and next, or participate in Curriki, or help you to develop the next digital town hall.
Or rage at me.
Hey, you said controversy is good. That leads to the next big innovation.
Absolutely.
If it's not controversial, it's not going to be a good innovation.
Absolutely.
So you can follow him on Twitter at Scott McNealy. He is verified. You can also find him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. And Phil will be back next week with the next episode of Killer Innovations. Have a great week, everyone.